speaking of something being here for the duration of the summer and the duration of what seems like the last 3 years, is what in the world is going to happen with T. Higgins? Adam Schefter reported yesterday that T. Higgins did not sign his franchise tag, which means what exactly, Casey?
I mean, for those that don't understand, he will not be able to participate in team activities if he does not sign this tag. Jesse Bates did a very similar thing 2 years ago, where he did not sign the tag until, 2 weeks before the regular season started? So probably going to be very similar situations. It's the same agent, right?
Yep, same agent.
So it's probably the exact same advice. Just hold out until you can't hold out any longer, and then go get right in the last 2 weeks before the regular season starts.
We've got bad blood with that agent here in this city.
Oh, David Mulligato's high on my list, man. He's not one of my favorites. Everyone's blowing up the news about T not signing. He's not going to be there for optional team activities. I think that's important. I don't think Jamar Chase is going to be there either, and he's obviously not in any kind of contract disputes. So I think it's a whole lot of nothing, and my opinion still hasn't changed. T is not passing up on $22.7 million or whatever that is, which is what it would mean if he doesn't sign that tag and sits out this year. He also wouldn't get the year off of his franchise tag, so he would probably be a Bengal again next year, right at that first tag line, instead of getting the 120% bump if they tagged him a second time had he played under this tag. So I don't think it's a feasible opportunity that he doesn't sign and sits out this year.
Yeah, but what if he retires? Because we talked about with Trey Hendrickson. He's saying he's going to retire. I believe him. He's going to walk away from all the millions in his prime, and he's going to go. What?
He was at optional. Trey Hendrickson, proud member of the Bengals, at optional training activities.
Oh, look at that.
So
leader.
It's almost like his agent was just full of crap.
No.
Just spouting some nonsense.
Yeah. He was going to retire, though, Casey. They want you to believe it.
Jimmy, you were about to...
Yeah. So my question is, if T. Higgins doesn't go, does he really want it?
It's a good question.
It is. So that is the one point when this comes down to this whole thing. And yesterday we were told, hey, we got to make more TikTokable takes. So this is my. You ready, Kirby, or whoever's gonna make this? This is my TikTokable take. The TTT. The TTT is about T Higgins at OTAs. Man, that was a
lot of T's.
That's a lot of T's. All right. 3 things you got to remember about this whole T Higgins contract thing. 1, T Higgins will play. Jacob just said it. We all know that he's not going to pass up the franchise tag money. You can say all you want, I'm not going to play, but when you start missing game checks, it gives you a lot of incentive to go out there. Number 2, T. Higgins will play up to the level of T. Higgins. I know everyone wants to say that, hey, there's not a whole lot of motivation there. What more motivation do you get than playing in your contract year, knowing that you have to show out to get what other wide receivers in the market are getting? Numbers near $100 million. Now, is T. Higgins worth that? I don't know, but we certainly know he's going to be one of the higher paid wide receivers next year. And the third thing that we've all got to remember here in Cincinnati, he will play up to his level, but most importantly, perhaps, he'll be gone next year. He will no longer, more than likely, be a Cincinnati Bengal after this year. As much as that breaks all of our hearts, we love T. We want to see T in stripes for the duration of his career, but you just can't justify paying him the amount of money that he deserves to be paid. Deserves to be paid when you already have to shore up money to our star quarterback in Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, the number 1 here in this city. It's a good problem to have that you have guys underpaid on your staff, on your team, on your roster, because that means you have a pretty good roster. When you have overpaid guys, you're probably not winning too many games. T. Higgins is underpaid. T. Higgins will get paid next year, and T. Higgins will play for the Cincinnati Bengals come September, and he will play up to his level. All right, that was my TTT. That was my TikTok take. Ellie Rude, do you have an opinion on this whole T. Higgins thing? Are you tired of the noise? Are you just... Or is it just white
I don't think
noise?
it's a big deal. It's a business. It's a business move. When you get the franchise tag, the franchise know what it's doing, and the player knows what he is going to have to do. It's just the standard thing that everybody deals with. The franchise tag means the team is not going to pay you. You're going to play 1 year. You're going to make a lot of money in that year, But it's not a commitment to that team. You're committing to yourself. You're going to still play. You're not going to lose out on money, on $22 million?
22.7.
So T. Higgins isn't missing out on $22 million to prove some ethical, moral point to the Cincinnati Bengals that he's better than them. It doesn't make sense to him. It doesn't make sense to anybody. He's going to play. He's going to be a Cincinnati Bengal. He'll be ready by week 1.
Yeah, I mean, I could make an argument that this is actually a good thing for T. Higgins and the Bengals. Keeps him healthy throughout the entire preseason. Like we struggle with staying healthy throughout the preseason, throughout this offseason. Him not being there for the whole thing, I don't think is a big deal. He's been here in Cincinnati for 4 years straight. He knows the system. He knows his players. He knows what to do, right? He's not being asked to do anything more than what he's already been doing. So him missing out on time, much like the Jesse Bates didn't really miss a step. I mean, he was fine after being in our team for 2 weeks, and then I expect something very similar with T. Higgins. He's going to be fine. And
I like that this news keeps popping up from Adam Schefter and national news guys because it gives almost a sense of like everything's going wrong in Cincinnati. What's the old Lil Wayne line? Real G's move in silence like lasagna. And that's what I want the Bengals to do. I want them to lay low. I don't need to have the best odds to win the Super Bowl. I don't need for everyone in their preseason power rankings to put the Cincinnati Bengals in the top 5, the top 3. I don't need that. I know what we have here in Cincinnati. We have Joe Burrow, we have Jamar Chase, we have T. Higgins, we've got a young defense, and we've got maybe the best offensive line that they've had in the Joe Burrow era. We got a pretty good coach that I believe in. Maybe not everyone believes in, but I believe in. And we got good offensive coordinators, or at least on the defensive side. Or we got good coordinators, at least on the defensive side. We'll see what happens on the offensive side. So I don't need when it comes to the Adam Schefter and everyone's like, oh, everything's wrong in Cincinnati. It's not. This is what's gone on. This is how the Bengals have conducted business. Now it's just the guys that were young when they first made this run. It's their time to get paid, and it's just normal business for how the Cincinnati Bengals conduct it, for how agents and players conduct it. This is nothing new. This is truly nothing new. And as I've mentioned, it's not an indictment that T. Higgins won't get a contract next year. It's not an indictment that they haven't given him an extension already. It's really just because his team has so many good young players that you have to, in a salary cap league, allot funds to more important positions. And I think that we all can agree that Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase should get money over T. Higgins. That's not even a question. It's not even something that we ever bring up. The question is, can we pay them both? And I don't know, with the way that the draft's working, with how many wide receivers are coming in ready to play more than ever, it becomes harder to pay a number 2 $25 million or whatever he's going to get paid going forward. But as this whole point was, T. Higgins is going to play. When that $1.7 million game check misses up on week 1, if he even does that, because we saw that with Chris Jones, although he did get an extension, he did get a 1-year deal and then got the long-term extension this offseason. All it takes is missing one, and he won't even miss one. He'll show up when it's time to show up, and he'll be ready to play.
Do you think the franchise tag, when a player is signing that, and he knows he's essentially fighting for another contract is what he's doing. He's trying to get some more value on himself. Do you think T. Higgins is going to have a career year this year playing under the franchise tag?
Players typically play better on a contract year. We all know this. They have a lot more to play for. You eat what you kill. So you go out there. We're seeing this in baseball all the time.
Yep.
Be weary of guys in contract years because after they get the big one, they come back and they don't look like the same player.
Shout out Fat Moose.
Javi Baez.
Yeah. If you go down the list, I think Andrew Jones is a big one that he came into spring training about 60 pounds overweight. But I don't know. I don't know if he'll have a career year. He's had a fantastic career. I think he will be the same player that we've seen when healthy throughout his entirety.
Yeah.
If he stays on the field, that's all I know.
That's fair. I'll say this. The look of the Bengals when Trey Hendrickson came out and he did his little fake thing where he's going to fake retire and we're going to request a trade and all that nonsense. That to me was like the sign of like it was just a bad look. It was a bad look for the organization, in my opinion. I'm not saying it mattered in the long run. I still don't even know. Is anybody even talking about Trey Hendrickson's requesting a trade? No, not right now. So I think if you look at that, I think that was the national perspective when for guys like Adam Schefter. He's like, oh, the Bengals are in peril right now because Trey Hendrickson and T. Higgins are both wanting out, and both I just think they want more money, and this is a standard way to get it in the NFL. You say I'm going to request a trade, and then nothing really happens. Sometimes it happens, but not.
Do we know who Trey Hendrickson's agent is off the top? Was he just trying to get in the news?
It's not a Molietta or a
one of the main guys.
It's not a major name.
Right, I was going to say, was he just watching the news and saying, this is what everyone else does?
And with
that's
Trey,
what we should try.
Harold Lewis.
Yeah, I've never heard that name before in my life. If Trey's already at optional training the first session, not even when veterans are here, that was obviously, to me, an agent trying to stir the pot. I mean, Trey is certainly underpaid. He signed that extension last year to add an extra year to his contract, and his production certainly outweighs the amount of money we're paying him when compared to other edge rushers. But with him already here, that seems like a whole nothing burger to me.
It was at the time that it came out, and we knew this because I think Elliott he still gripes with the retirement threats.
Because it was nonsense. It's a nonsensical bluff. There's a couple people that can bluff that. If you're like a 37-year-old quarterback, you can bluff that. You can't do it if you're in your prime. And coming off one of his best seasons. You can't do that.
I see a lot of sentiments in the chat worried about T. Higgins going down the Jesse Bates route of a 1 year on the franchise tag and then walking for free and getting nothing in return. And a lot of people are saying that they'd rather just trade T and have a haul this year and make a long-term run. I think something a lot of people might not realize is the double tagging him again next year is only a 120% increase on this year. It'd be about $28 million. Certainly you're not running that out on the field, but you have the opportunity to tag him for a number below $30 million that fits with our cap space and trade him next year while still having this year as a full run with these weapons and giving it a full go at the Super Bowl. And if he plays up to the level that we've come to expect from T. Higgins, like Reed said, you're not trading him at low value when he played a career low in snap count, a career low yards per catch and everything last year.
But isn't the problem with that though, like you're kind of showing your hand around the league? Like,
certainly, you'd be forced to trade him, but even if you're not getting the maximum package, it's better than nothing.
That's fair.
In my opinion.
That's fair.
I said, and we made the joke when the show first started, like, hey, we talk about this T. Higgins contract. We've talked about it at least once a week for the last 5 months now. And it continues to rear its head. And I said back in January, I said in February, I said, and I'll continue to say it, the most likely scenario is that T. Higgins plays on this franchise deal. And I know we can double tag, but I think more than likely he walks out the door. And that's, and I know you're not getting value for a player that you've had. Just like Jesse Bates. You could have traded him away for some picks. But in where I would have liked the Bengals to trade T. Higgins if you would have gotten certainly if you would have got a first. I think you even make the deal for a second and a later round pick. But that was never what was going to happen. We knew this. We knew T. Higgins was going to play it out, and it's going to be pretty similar to Jesse Bates. And I want to remind people, and I try to remind people about this Jesse Bates thing. Don't be scared of what T. Higgins becomes when he goes somewhere else. Don't be scared of T. Higgins going to another team and catching 1,200 yards and near 10 touchdowns. That's not the end of the world because we can still have players in the draft the way that the draft is working. It still might be the best course of action to just say, hey, we got one more year of T, and then T, congratulations, you're going to go get paid somewhere else. And we're going to continue to allot the money, the funds that we have to where we need it. Offensive line, protecting Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Trey Hendrickson, places like that. That's okay. Just because your ex goes out and flourishes in the world on her own doesn't make breaking up a bad decision. It doesn't. It doesn't.